Tim's Enthusiast Garage, episode 18, and the Honda NSX factory. Man, living in Ohio and being this close to the factory and having never visited, kind of a big car guy error. And you don't know how big of an error until you visit this fascinating factory. This place is a study in attention to detail. So my friends Mark and Josiah invited me to come to the NSX factory. This is crazy. It's only about an hour from Tim's Enthusiast Garage. Come on, let me take you on a tour. I remember talking to people that worked in other car factories and then moved over to the Honda factory and had let me know how revolutionary it was to work for Honda. Not only the positivity of the culture, but how that was reflected in the building of the cars. This factory was not only state-of-the-art, but everybody that worked there was so stoked to talk with me. They had an old NSX, first-generation NSX on display, and that car was lovingly displayed right there in the factory, alongside the new NSX.
Here, these guys are truly experts at what they do. I mean, they're responsible to build each individual segment of their component. They're responsible for the weld programming, the weld teaching, the quality of their welds. I mean, they're actually responsible for everything.
Wow.
Have to check and count every weld. They physically go, and when you see the pen marks on their welds, they're physically counting and making sure that every weld is present and that those welds are good. And if they're not good, then they make a manual MIG weld or a TIG weld.
What is CW?
Some rivets, so it's just a rivet type. That's what's done in this cell. Does is after it measures it, it inputs the data, and then at the end of the program, before I take the car out, I go through every data point. And we have different programs.
If he says that this hinge nut is off, I can actually bring the part in by itself. And I can either do it on the car or on the space frame, or I can bring it in individually. So if he tells me that that is off, another way that we can measure these features and measure these surfaces is with a scan. So what I would actually do is I will come over here, I'll lock it in because it has to be locked in so it doesn't move. So once I have it locked in, I'll come over here and I will actually start scanning the surface. And I'll go a little fast because if I had to do this whole thing, it probably would take a half hour because I want to make sure that I get every feature on here. I would have the scan and I would have the part. And the scan is there, the part is there, but it says I don't know where it is. So what I have to do is I have to do what they call an alignment. And basically, when you start putting all these wheels on here, it will start distorting the part. Yeah. You know, sure. So my scan is there, my part is there. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna align this, and I'm gonna put my alignment on. And once I turn the alignment, the scan knows exactly where the part is. So now what I'm doing here is I'll bring this part in close to me. I see that it's scanned. So I'm gonna turn the part off real quick just to reflect the scan, because now I want to take my color map here, which it starts at 0, and then we got it in millimeters. I can shrink that up to just to show 2 millimeters.
So while Tim's Enthusiast Garage and me personally, I've been most drawn to European cars over the years. I own mostly European cars, but I have just gone through this love affair with Honda lately. You know, I bought a Honda Beat, and I sort of think of that car as being half of an NSX. You know, it's a 3-cylinder, but it is mid-engine and just lovingly designed. And what I see with Acura and Honda, more specifically, in the NSX, this attention to detail and quality. And one thing you almost never hear in cars of this stratosphere is value. I've seen these cars heavily discounted at Honda dealers because they sort of misjudged the market a little bit. And I think that the market has also misjudged this car. It's such a interactive car to drive. It has so many features packed in. And while $150,000 is a lot of money for a car, with incentives, you can get them for a little bit less than that, or right at that. And there's nothing really close to it that has the level of performance, or I would even say the level of sophistication in assembly. And I would even go so far as to say as the love that's imbued into these cars. It almost feels like the McLaren factory in a lot of ways, or like the Ferrari factory, a decade ago, where each of the manufacturing stations has someone that's super passionate about what they're doing. If you look at the specs of this car, there's nothing anywhere close to it. Close to 600 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, 100 in 7 seconds. The car nearly dips into the 10s in the quarter mile. And while cars like the Aventador may be 8 or 10 miles an hour faster in the quarter mile, which is substantial, that car also costs $400,000 more, or $300 and something thousand dollars more. I mean, it's significantly more. And what struck me after having driven both of those cars, spent a substantial amount of time in both of those cars and in the McLaren 570, is that you don't walk away from the Acura feeling like it's less than. And certainly after visiting this factory, I feel like in a lot of ways it's more than. The connection, the limited availability of the cars, I think it's going to be a very limited production run car. And I think in the future, people are really going to regret that they didn't take these cars a little more seriously. This part of the factory was one of my absolute favorite parts. You could get up close and personal with each part of the car, from the fuel tanks to the turbochargers to the window glass to each and every item that goes into these cars. And this place was so clean you could eat off the floor. I mean, it's just an amazing opportunity, and really I fell in love with the NSX, and I hope that more of you do too. I think that in the future they're depreciating still. So 5 years from now, this car is going to be an amazing used car buy. So I hope that this stands over the years. This obviously I'll upload this here to YouTube, and hopefully years from now people can watch this tour of the factory and just be like, man, so many people missed the boat on this car. I really, really want one now, and I did not see that happening prior to this. I suspected that I liked the car, but this sort of just took it to a whole new place for me. Quiet mode is something that only a hybrid can bring you, and you never really feel like this car is a hybrid in the negative sense of the word. You only sense that it's a hybrid in the most positive sense of the word. I love the NSX. I think you should take another look at it too. crazy to think that this much excellence is happening just an hour away from my home. Here in Ohio, a world-dominating supercar is being built. And if you haven't driven one, you should take the opportunity immediately and get in one. I think it stacks up pretty well against things like the Aventador and even the McLarens. One of the things that struck me today is how impressive the NSX plant is. The NSX production and everybody involved in it is so passionate about these cars. One of the things that struck me is how Honda's missed the mark with the marketing on this car. I feel like they've tried to position it more as a Bugatti slayer. It's great that it has the handling that it does, but this car is in a price point where it's competitive against the GT3. It's competitive against, you can almost say you can almost get one instead of a 911. And comparing this car with the 911, it's vastly superior. And this is one of those things where I feel like it's an opportunity for them to bring people here, let them drive the car on their test track, bring them to the factory, let people see the real enthusiasm that's at work here at Honda, and they will buy NSXs. That's my take on it. In between episodes of Tim's Enthusiast Garage, you can check out timsenthusiastgarage.com for my latest blogs like this one on my visit to Duncan, and this new fantastic poster that you can buy, and my new show called Motor Vice, which I'm doing in the Midwest, in Tampa, and Dallas, and other places coming soon. So really stoked about this 80s and 90s show. It features a lot of the cars that I love that are on Tim's Enthusiast Garage. And the Midwest show was an amazing success. I hope to see you January 5th for Motor Vice Tampa.